almost guarantee yourself success with this strategy.
I know I need to buy something, so now is not a bad time to buy.
There's so much rhetoric in the media in terms of headlines.
There's also something called a balanced market, which I think most people don't understand.
When you come on Thursday, it's game one.
Because we all get to decide.
The business, the way to shoot the video.
We are live. Here we go. For the first time ever, the Jazz Takhar podcast is actually live streaming on any platform. Jazz Takhar podcast has never done a live stream. I've done a lot. My guest, what do I got for you today? What do I got for you? The one and only Laura Elto Stewart. Audio good, boys and girls in the back. I got my whole crew, the media squad. I want to welcome everyone who is watching on Twitch. And if you're watching this recording on YouTube, or maybe you're listening while you're taking your dog for a walk, not Rudy, but maybe your dog, or you're driving in the car, you're on the treadmill, because look, we are going to be live streaming the Jazz Takhar podcast moving forward in 2024, but that doesn't change the fact that you're still going to be able to hear us on your favorite podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the other 150 that are out there, as well as you're going to be able to watch the recordings on YouTube. And so if you're on Twitch and you're like, who the heck is this guy? Like, who's this good-looking guy or not so good-looking guy waving his hands, coming with all this energy? Like, why should we ever even come back here? Why should we even share it with a friend? I want to tell you that the Jazz Takhar podcast has been around now for coming up to 4 years. We have a little over 230, I think, episodes. I've been fortunate enough to sit down with some of the top business leaders in the world, some of the top sales leaders in the world, some of the top people in the real estate industry. That is the industry that I'm in. I have a team of a little over 45 to 50 real estate agents. We've been doing this for coming up to 2 decades. I ain't trying to flex, all right? So to all my new Twitch friends, family, fans, followers, subscribers, you're going to hear this often. I'm not telling you to impress you. It's more to impress upon you where all the data is coming from. We help a little over 700 families every single year buy, sell, invest into real estate in the greater Toronto area. But out of that, what came is other realtors asking me, like, hey, like, how you doing all this content? Like, they'll probably start asking me, like, what the hell is this Twitch thing? I thought it was just for gaming. I thought it was just for kids. Why should I even bother with it? But I am a strong believer that in the world of business, if you're looking into helping more customers, helping more clients, you got to get out there. You got to be omnipresent. So you got to make sure that you're on all the platforms. Real estate agents started asking me. I partnered up with who my VP is, Laura Stewart, in my real estate company. We partnered up and started a coaching company, formalized it about 7-8 months ago this year in 2023, which we're going to touch on today. We're going to do a full recap in our businesses, both the real estate business as well as the coaching business. We're going to touch a little bit on what's going to happen in 2024 when it comes to real estate. But Laura, it's 3 days away from Christmas.
Woohoo!
All right. I know that's one of your favorite times of the year.
Of course, you make me shoot a podcast 3 days before Christmas.
Well, look, we're going to show the world that we don't stop. All right.
The show
must go on. We're going to keep going.
Santa can wait.
What are you going to be doing, and where are you going to be waiting for Santa this Christmas?
I am going to be waiting for Santa at my in-laws' house, actually. I'm very fortunate that my in-laws happen to live like 5-minute drive to my parents' house. So I will see both families on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and I'm going to eat a lot. That's what I'm going to say.
Well, we're not surprised. You're going to get to know Laura. For all of our friends who are listening to the recording of the Jazz Takhar podcast right now, you know she's a big foodie. She's a big fashion person. But let's go back for a second. Like, what is Christmas a big thing growing up? And like, is it Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day? Are you going to be busy kind of the whole holidays? Like, what's this?
Yeah, I mean, when I was growing up, we started skiing pretty young, and we always started skiing like on Boxing Day. So I'd get to play with my toys on Christmas Day, and then my parents would force me out of the house to go skiing. I never wanted to go. I always wanted to stay home, play more with my games. But now that's still what I do to this day. So I'll be skiing most of the time between Christmas and New Year.
If you guys are in the chat right now on Twitch, feel free to throw some comments in there. I'm going to do my best to make sure that I get them answered. And again, if you're watching the recording or you're listening to this podcast episode, get on Twitch. Come on over. We're going to be doing some really cool streaming in the new year, showing you a lot of behind the scenes stuff. Like a lot of it is going to be from the Jazz Takhar podcast, but I got a big crew. Laura and I have a massive crew when it comes to our sales organization, but also our creative media team. And we're going to start showing you a lot of that stuff behind the scenes, which I think you guys will find interesting. I have Christmas Eve dinner at my house this year, and then I have my in-laws coming over on Boxing Day, and then I'm not actually going anywhere. Did you mention where you're going this year for the skiing and with your sister-in-law's place? And
oh yeah, well that's like on the 30th, I think 30th, 31st.
And
I'm
where's
actually
that?
heading to Fernie, which is just outside Calgary. Because that's where my sister-in-law lives with her family, and so I'll do a little bit of skiing there. But when I mentioned the skiing that I was previously doing, that was just a little bump north of Toronto, a little place called Mansfield. That's actually where I grew up skiing. So I'll be skiing really the whole time.
is that what skiers call it? Like if it's not a massive hill like in Whistler or something like that, you just call it like just a little bump.
We'll
like
say the ski
I used to call it a bunny
maybe.
hill. I never made it past the bunny hill. I got to be honest with you. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not a big avid skier. You can tell by my physique. It's not my go-to thing. But is this ski place in Calgary, like, is it known for, like, it's a really big hills?
This is we're talking mountains
Got it.
versus bumps.
Have you ever done the Whistler thing? I've never even asked.
I have been to Whistler, yeah.
Okay.
I've been to Whistler. I've been to Vermont, a couple places in Vermont. I've been to Lake Louise, so I've been around. I've made the round.
You jumped around in that sense.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple of things I want to touch on today. We're going to touch on the forecast for 2024 when it comes to real estate. I mean, you being the vice president of our company, of the 45 agents that we have, the 700 transactions, you do a lot of overwatching of our agents as well as our clients. You primarily help with the pre-construction world, which a lot of our new people in our community might not have ever invested into. Maybe we'll touch on that a little bit. There's a bunch of articles that I thought would be interesting to just touch on because there's so much rhetoric in the media in terms of headlines. And unfortunately, I mean, collectively, we've been doing this for over 30 years now, the real estate stuff. We know that most people are headline readers.
Yes.
So
and guilty. Me too,
in terms
right?
of?
Like just, I mean, you catch an interesting headline, you're scrolling through social, you happen to catch or glimpse at CP24, which is like a rolling news station, right? And they're just giving you these little sound bites. And that suddenly very quickly becomes the truth, because what happens is then I come to you and I'm like, Jazz, did you hear? And I kind of just spew out the headline to you without really knowing what was in the article. And sometimes the headline actually is opposite of what's in the article. So it's very interesting.
Before we jump into that stuff, I want to take a step back and do a little bit of a recap. Number one, let's touch on the recap of our businesses, right? So from the internal side of our organizations and our real estate company, I didn't even mention it to anybody yet. It's REC Canada, our coaching/training company for real estate professionals that both Laura and I are co-founders in, is From the Ground Up Academy. For short, we call it FITIGU Academy. You'll hear us say FITIGU, FTGU, which stands for From the Ground Up. Where do you want to go first? REC Canada or FITIGU?
Let's go REC Canada.
Go.
I think it actually will bleed into our training company. Well, where do you want to? Where are we
Well,
starting?
look,
Like
I mean,
January? You want me to go right back?
Well, no,
to
I think that would take us 7 hours to do. Why don't we just go to the fact that how many, like, I mean, at the end of the day, we were able to, and still fortunate to place in the top 3 in Canada for the franchise that is Royal LePage Canada. It is Canada's largest real estate franchise. And so, look, I mean, the colleagues that we have, not only in our office, but in our organization of all Royal LePage, I mean, these are some of the top real estate professionals right across any franchise, any brand, right across the world. I'm not just saying that. There's 22,000. We still placed in the top 3.
For 2 categories, actually.
What is the
or
2
both
categories,
right? So we placed in the top 3 for GCI, which is gross commission.
Yep.
as well as units sold. So we were actually the only team to place in the top 3 for both categories. So I think it's pretty unique, right? Because you might have some people who are really good at pushing units and selling units, but the price point might not be very high. Vice versa, you have some people who sell very high price points, in the $4 or $5, $6 million price points, but they don't necessarily transact a lot of units. And so luckily and fortunately, our team was able to place top 3 in both of those categories.
I just want to make sure that I got our members invited into the Twitch stream as well. Oh, awesome. Okay, so now a lot of people were very concerned, real estate professionals, about how the market shifted so much because of the massive increases in interest rates. We're going to touch on what that means for the public and for buyers, sellers, and investors. But for real estate professionals, I mean, it was one of the toughest years in the 30 years that we've been doing this collectively. I mean, we've never seen sales drop as much as it has. What do you find that we did well? We'll also then touch on what we could have done better internally as a group. And I mean that from our core group of people that you and I work with, Laura, and then right outside to our 45, 50 agents.
Yeah, I think probably it comes to mind very, very quickly that what I think we did really, really well is really work on the mindset. That's what it ultimately comes down to, because markets are good, they're bad, they're somewhere in between most of the time. But if you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to capitalize no matter what the market condition is. And when I say mindset, I mean the ability to come to work, put out fires, get stomped all over, have people yell or be upset with you because maybe their particular investment isn't going as they thought.
Well, you just scared half the people that wanted to be a real estate agent in 2024. You scared the shit out of them. Yeah,
you should be scared.
I agree.
Because
Continue.
quite honestly, I think a lot of people get into the business thinking it's going to be easy because every single TV show about real estate agents just show that we put a sign on the lawn and wear really cute clothes, which is quite frankly why I got into the industry. But I have learned in my 10 years now in the industry that that's really not the case. And so if you don't show up to work and have the ability to put yesterday behind you and say, okay, look, I get that I failed. I get that I didn't sell something. I get that my buyer walked away or my seller decided not to sell. Whatever the case may be, someone went with a different agent or there are no buyers, there are no sellers. You have to get up with the same amount of enthusiasm every day and come to work and try something more or different. And I say more or different because sometimes if you know that you're doing the basics, you just have to trust that process. Trust in the fact that if you take care of the work will take care of you. At the same time, if you're doing something, you're hitting your head against the wall, and it's not working, maybe it's time to shift because the market's requiring that you do something slightly different. So if you weren't doing events, maybe it's time to do events. If you weren't sending emails, maybe now it's time. Let's start sending some emails. If you were not on social media, now's the time to get on social media. So all those things require that people pivot quite quickly. Yeah,
look, I mean, I want to be upfront as possible because I think for people who watch and listen to us, I mean, they especially the guys and gals that have been in our world for a long time, they see a lot of our successes now. And we've been quite blessed, right? The team that we have and the clients that we have that have now turned into not only friends, but some of them like true family. They're around us on a regular basis. But there's a lot of failures, right? And this year was no different in that sense. I actually think what we could have done better this year is probably done more events. I think what happened with us probably sometime, and I put it on myself, where I'm kind of leading the charge when it comes to our clients and how we're marketing, obviously with yourself and Tyler and Simos and Luke. But I feel like we could have done maybe some more educational in-person events where we do a great job with webinars on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. I think we only ended up doing maybe about 6 or 7 in-person events. Am I right, Laura?
We didn't do a lot.
Right.
And quite frankly, when the show rate lessens, it is a little bit discouraging.
Yeah, especially after we've been doing it for so long, right?
We've been doing it for so long, so we're used to certain numbers. Yeah. But then obviously when the public persona of the real estate market isn't good and they're thinking I'm not motivated to sell or buy or do anything, so why even bother getting educated? So they don't want to show up. Having said that, I think you're right. We could have done more events. And the people who do show up, I think that even more so points to the fact that those people are ready, because there are very savvy people out there who take advantage of these types of market dynamics. And if, only 5, 10, 15 people showed up compared to our 60, 70 that we'd have in the past, well, guess what? Those people are ready to rock.
Okay, so now I want to jump over to our other organization, right? Which we just, again, I said it earlier, but for the people that are listening or maybe started the podcast somewhere in the middle, From the Ground Up Academy, Fitigu Academy, formalized sometime in about August, mid-July to kind of August of this year. So we've been now officially an academy for the last 4 or 5 months. We have a little over 100 members, which are a mixture of we call them real estate professionals, which is a mixture of real estate agents as well as mortgage brokers / loan officers right across the continent, which is kind of cool because we offer programs that are in person, digital. You have a hybrid of both, which is kind of neat. But how did you feel just starting that business in the middle of the year? Like, I want to go back.
Well, in hindsight, you must have been crazy because that business, when your target market is real estate professionals and the real estate industry is in the worst market that it's seen in 20 years?
20 years exactly.
20 years?
22 years.
22 years. You know, most people would probably be like, don't do it, don't touch it, don't like run away, retreat. But we just decided to go all in. And I think that's probably just because we're very, very passionate about helping real estate agents. We're both in the industry. We both actively are still involved in selling real estate. And so to help other people enjoy their industry, their career as much as we enjoy ours, gives me a lot of joy. So at the time, I don't even think, I think I was too stupid to be scared. In all honesty, like I don't recall being like really afraid. I recall being very excited and thinking it was going to be like the most wonderful thing ever.
I think when you're starting a business, at some point, you have to be a little crazy. You got to be a little gullible. You got to be a little naive because most businesses are going to fail.
Yes.
Okay.
What are the statistics?
Well, I mean,
10% of businesses make it.
Yeah. So 10% of businesses actually survive after the first year.
Yeah.
Okay. It's nuts. Okay. And then from the ones that survive, only 10% of those make it to the 5-year mark. Right. And so for you to start, especially us, and not that we're unique in the sense of we're not the only ones who have started a second kind of business while you're still, making sure that you're focusing on the first one. But I do think we're unique from the perspective of having it tied to the first business, right? So what you said, like, it's not like we put eggs in different baskets,
we didn't really
right?
branch off, right?
Yeah, so I think that has its pros and has its cons, right? The pros being that you kind of know it, you live it. In our case, like I love what you said, that we're actually still practicing brokers, which again I think makes us unique in the coaching business when it comes to real estate professionals. But look, I think it's so important for people who might be thinking about starting a business is that you are going to hear from people that think you're crazy. And I've come to learn in the 20 years that I've been kind of a business owner that that's when you might be onto something. That's when you might actually
certainly when it comes to business, that's what you're onto. If like your spouse or your best friends are like, you're crazy. Maybe you're crazy. But
even content, though, you said, like, even when it comes to business, I think if I heard you properly, like, even content creation, like, how many people say to you how nuts you are and crazy you are, and like, you're so weird. Like, why do you do all this Instagramming and Twitching and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, you're right. In that regard, I think when you're different from the majority of people, it probably works out better for you. You're right. You're onto something usually when people are like, I don't understand it. I don't know why you're doing it, when they have a lot of questions about it. And then what usually happens is that give it 4, 5, 6 years and people come around.
Well, look, I mean, case in point, Jazz Takhar podcast, right? When we had a $75 mic that we bought from Staples.
Blue.
Okay?
Yes.
It was called Blue.
Yeah.
We didn't name it Blue. That
Blue
was actually Blue Magic or something like that. $75.
Yeah.
We bought it from Staples. And everyone in our office, our clients not so much, but definitely people in the industry were like, these guys are really on some type of
And I
track.
think
Like,
they thought we were like full of ourselves, and we just
like
thought we were like
narcissistic
we think that we should have this show.
And how many people thought like we were just wasting time?
Yeah,
They're like, what the hell are you doing back there with a mic on? And then you have somebody
Go
holding
sell
a camera.
Something.
Go sell some real estate. Little did they know.
Yeah.
Not a knock on them by any means, but little did they know that what we were actually doing was building brand, building awareness, specifically for our client base, which made it so much easier for our clients to introduce us to more clients. Like rather than saying to their friends or family, like our clients, saying, hey, like use Laura or Jazz or REC Canada as your real estate agent if you're thinking about buying and selling. They're like, hey, like they do this thing. I think it's called a pod something. Like half the people, more than half the world didn't know what a podcast was, right?
Me included.
We were,
Me included.
I'm glad that you threw yourself under the bus. But at the same time, now to your point, fast forward 4 years later, we're 200 and something episodes deep for this episode, for this podcast. Almost every realtor that we bump into want to start to do this. Right?
They feel they should. It's funny. I think there's like an adoption curve for technology, right? Where you have the people, a very small percentage of the people at the start who are, I think, either innovators, and then it goes, another chunk of people are early adopters, and then the majority of people are kind of in the middle. Yeah. Right? And then unfortunately you have this tail end group that really only has to adopt a technology because their old technology now no longer exists. Yeah. Right? You can't buy a rotary phone anywhere that actually works, right? So people have to now move on to the new technology. I feel like the same thing is happening with podcasting and content, where it's like there's a group of people who understood it, they could see it. And even if they were like, if it goes nowhere, it's still worth me trying and then failing, and I'll take the laughs and the criticism from people. But if I'm right, I have such a first mover advantage over the majority of people that are going to get into it. And unfortunately, I still think that there's this group of people on the tail end that they're saying, no, no, no. And they're like really holding firm on it. And I'm like, give them another 10 years and they will have no choice but to be doing content. But they're going to be so late and they will have lost all the opportunities.
And again, case in point, look what we're trying today. For the first time ever, we have not live streamed the Jazz Takhar podcast before. So not only did we say we're going to live stream this, we actually said we're going to try this new funny platform called Twitch. Like, we don't really know, and like, full transparency, I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not a flexer by any means. I'm like, come join me for the journey. And if you want to know more about the shit that I do, awesome. And if not, that's okay. And can I even say that word on Twitch, boys? Do I get flagged? Yeah, we're going to no, I said the word. Shit, I just want to make sure. We're going to find out.
I think find out real soon.
Well, I don't know if the F-bombs and stuff like that, we're about to find out. But again, it's a matter of trying it. Mm-hmm. And then if it doesn't work, you didn't fail backwards. You got to have the mindset that you failed forward, because the amount of stuff that's happening behind the cameras right now.
I know, I can see the whole team.
Like the whole team, like they've never done this before. You know, and so we're all just kind of figuring it out ourselves along the way. If you're watching right now, and I see it on the screen, so if we don't mind for a second, can you just put the camera on Laura? Obviously, they'll be able to hear me. And the reason I say that is because I want to show people all the acronyms behind Laura and the wall. There you see our success table. You see majority of it anyways. But you'll see something right above Laura's, while you're looking on the screen, right shoulder, which is RFA. Okay, RFA, which stands for Ready, Fire, Aim. Very important if you're thinking about starting a business, getting into sales, getting into anything, starting to create content, rather than, falling into paralysis by analysis, which I know we all have. We're all human, including myself. What a good strategy that you can implement is pulling the trigger as many times as you possibly can, and then adjusting along the way. So that's why it's ready, fire, aim, not what we're used to hearing, which is ready, aim, fire, because most people sit and aim and say, that podcasting idea is a great idea. I'm going to start one in 2024. Yeah. But before I do, I need to make sure my backdrop is a beautiful green leafy background, or I need to make sure I have a nice sign, or I need to know the name of the show. I need to make sure I have all the guests lined up. In that time period,
I need to make sure I have followers.
I need to.
And I'm like, but that's how you get the followers, right? Like, so usually one thing precedes the other, but people like to flip that on its head often, right?
Right. And so by actually just getting started, you can now adjust along the way. So like real life, right? Real time example. Right now, the team, as we're going through stuff, right? We were supposed to be also live streaming on YouTube, but we weren't able to kind of figure it out because we have all this new technology. I actually have 2 new team members as well, okay, who are doing an awesome job. Big shout out to Bobo and Clyde. And I also have Wei and Alex here as well, who are not the new team members, but you guys have heard their names before. And we're trying to figure it out on YouTube. But okay, didn't work today. Guess what's going to happen? We're going to adjust along the way and figure it out for the next time. That's how this actually works out, which is an amazing segue. So, I'll tap myself on the shoulder because you started a new show this year.
I did, and I made all of the mistakes that we just went over.
Exactly.
Which is I overthought the name. I overthought the background. Luckily, I had you in my corner who finally said, Laura, stop the BS. Get started. You're doing the exact same thing that you tell other people not to do. And so it's one thing, like, just to know the information, right? Like, we all know how to get healthy for 2024. We all know how to lose weight, right? You ingest less calories.
One second, I have to cut you off. Cut you off. And you're going to go, and we'll make sure. But we had a big shout out right now from a friend of ours, Yas. And he says, oh my God, is Jazz doing Twitch? So big shout out to our boy, Yas. Hey, Yas, I told you, we're gonna keep the game moving on. Big shout out to you, brother. You know how much love I have for you. And so continue, Elto.
So I made a lot of the mistakes. So it's one thing, right, to know the information, right? You always say, like, people say, knowledge is power, right? I knew I needed to start a podcast. I knew I needed to not overthink it, but it's more so the use of knowledge is power, in that I needed to actually not overthink it. So
say that again. No, Lord, like, you got to go over that because that went over a lot of people's head, right? But the fact that it's not knowledge is not power. Yeah. What is actual power?
The use of knowledge
so important.
Power, right? So, like I said, we all know, like, I want to lose 10 pounds in the new year. Well, I know how to do that. Everyone instinctively knows how. We all try to, like, get the blue magic pill to make life easier on us, but we really actually know how. And the same thing is with content. Like, you just have to get started. You have to put one foot in front of the other, and you can't overthink it. So you got me to start, and I have officially done 20, I think I've recorded 27 episodes, but 25 have been released.
What's the name of it?
The Laura Show.
And where do people find it?
You find it wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And
so now, more importantly, what is the show about? Who are you catering this to? Who is it targeted to? What type of guests are you looking for?
Yeah, I really wanted my show to allow women the space to tell their stories. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all crying tear-worthy stories. Like, I've gotten that from people. Like, oh, is everyone just crying on your podcast all the time? I'm like, no. Although that has happened, I really just wanted to showcase women who were either entrepreneurs talking about how they grew their businesses, how they started their businesses, how they're scaling their businesses, how they sold their businesses, how they got financing for their businesses, or other women on to talk about their specialty, i.e. like a naturopathic doctor, a parenting coach, to give other listeners, potentially women, information and hacks on how they can best shape their own lives. Like, sometimes, we all want more in life, right? Whether that's to be healthier, more successful, thinner, more beautiful, whatever it is. So I'm trying to bring all the people to help other women do that.
Just out of curiosity, like, why did you cater it towards women? It's not like you're afraid of speaking to men, and you do a lot of business with men. But why did you go down that route?
Yeah, at first I actually didn't want it to be a podcast with only women on it. I really didn't, because I just don't feel like alienating a group of people from anything in any facet of life is ideal. So I always want people to feel included. Having said that, I just kind of felt like women, especially when it comes to content, there is already added hurdles that seem to be in the way of women. Like, oh, I want my hair to be right. I need my makeup to be right. I need to feel like I don't look bad on camera. All these things that women are thinking about. Not to say that men aren't, but it seems to be more apparent with women because we work with so many
I
people
think men,
trying to put them on camera.
I think men just do a better job at hiding it, in all honesty.
Well, maybe they just do it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? And so we just worked with so many people. And so I just felt like women need a certain type of environment, a certain type of space to feel like they can share. And so if I cater it toward that group of people, then I can make sure that people do feel confident and comfortable to come on the show and really tell their truth versus what they think the world wants to hear.
Now, you're probably somebody who's either watching us right now live, or you're watching the recording, or you're listening again while you're driving or taking your dog for a walk, and you might be thinking to yourself, holy crap, like, I can't understand this. Like, obviously Laura's a natural at this. And I got to say the truth that when she started out, she was not. I mean, she was scared shitless. You were freaking out. You, like most people, including myself, when I got started with this, when those lenses turned on, we kind of froze, right? And then you had to also, you started to think about like, oh my God, who are all these people that are going to be watching me, and they're going to start to comment, they're going to think I'm an idiot, or the other way, like we mentioned earlier, like, who do you think you are? You always used to say one thing to me, which was, I'm not sure why people are actually going to care to listen to me, right? Fast forward a year.
Yeah.
Okay. Was I right? And I don't mean this for myself.
Right, in that I should have a podcast?
That you should start as quickly as possible.
Oh, yeah. I guess my only regret now is I didn't do it earlier, which is what people generally say about a lot of things, right? Like, we talk to a lot of real estate investors, and that's what we always say. I just regret that I didn't do it sooner. I think for me, luckily, as a kid, I loved performing. Unfortunately, growing up, though, you know, your confidence lessens, and you have other voices in your head telling you, what if it doesn't work, or the teacher that told you that you weren't enough, or whatever it was. And so that kind of starts to become more prevalent. But what I had to do was kind of take off that armor that I had built up for myself and really try to get in touch with that little kid again. So if you weren't maybe a little kid who loved performing and loved being on camera or stage and things like that, then maybe podcasting isn't for you. Mind you, you don't have to do a video component. It could just be an audio podcast. So, but maybe that's not the right type of content for you. But for most people, when they think back to their childhood, I mean, like, even if you were really into sports, you are performing in front of people who are watching you. If you enjoyed that, then chances are, if you can just kind of get over all the insecurities along with the ego and fear and everything that's involved, you're probably going to like it. And you two are probably going to just wish that you got started earlier.
And I think one of the easiest things for me in getting over myself and putting myself out there was once I realized that most of the people are not actually thinking about me as long as I think they're thinking about me. You know? And I've shifted that a little bit, because I should say they're not thinking about you at all. But that's probably not true. Yeah. They're scrolling, and so they did think about you when they saw you,
and they probably judged you.
But they moved on, like you probably have done with others, and you might even do that with us right now if you're new to our world. You're like, I don't really like these guys, and then you move on and do your thing, right? But if you're still listening to what I'm saying, obviously still probably like something about us. And for the person who's thinking about starting content, I cannot tell you how true this is, that people are not thinking about you as long as you think they're thinking about you. They're majority of the time they're doing what you're doing, which is thinking about yourself.
Yes.
Like, we're so caught up in ourselves majority of the time.
You know what judgment really is? It's a tool for human beings to help process information faster, right? So we need to, as humans, there's so much going on when you think of, like, even your surrounding and all of the information. Like, everything is bits and pieces of information, either the sound that's happening, the things that you can see, the things that you can smell, the things that you can feel. Your brain is processing a lot. And so to help it process things faster and really only focus on the important things, it tends to put things in boxes. So it likes categorizing. So although as people we are quite complicated, the way we judge the world is quite simple. So we say, I like it, I don't like it. I'm judging it. It's this, it's that, it's hot, it's cold, she's nice, he's mean, they're kind, like whatever it is, right? So we make these snap decisions and snap judgments about people so that we can process the information easier. But once I've processed the information, it's put away in the filing folder, and I'm not thinking about it again, right? So people just have to understand that, yes, you might be being judged, but you're being judged by a very human thing that every single person does. And you're supposed to do it. That's how we've evolved and been successful as a species. So it's not a bad thing. It might not feel good, understandably, to you, but it's not really inherently a bad thing. So if you can kind of look at judgment like that, like it's just a natural way of things, move on. Because yes, people are judging you, but then they've moved on. You're the only one harboring anything.
Well, moving on to the next kind of thought process that I was having in my head while you were speaking, which is, well, what can some of our real estate professionals now start to focus on for 2024? Yes, we have to put 2023 where it belongs. I know we got another 7 days. Yeah, I just say the past, but I love what you're saying. If it was a year for you that just really sucked, and I can tell you from a business owner on the real estate side, or REC Canada side, I mean, it was one of the toughest, and I've said it already before, it was one of the toughest years that I've ever been through in the 20 years that I've been doing this. And even so, I learned so much about myself. I've learned so much about the people around me that it was not enough. And I know you were making the joke in the garbage, but it wasn't like, oh my God, I just want to like never think about it again. But at the end of the day, it belongs where it belongs, which is in the past. You cannot change anything about what happened in 2023. What you can control, though, and this is where I think the power really lies, is in the accountability of the fact that you can now control what and how you respond to certain events that happen in 2024. Meaning that if you didn't get the business that you were looking for this year, well, you need to realize that's on you. It's not what the market did. I understand the amount of interest rate increases, but we all felt it. We all had the same prime minister. We all had the same president. We all had the same situations in terms of outside factors of the economy. But I actually know a lot of real estate professionals, and some of them we train and coach. They had their best years ever.
Yes.
Right? Because a lot of people did put their feet up. And there was a lot of people who were just doing the one thing that you have to. As a person, I don't care in your business life, in your personal life, you have to stop complaining. Because at the end of the day, complainers generally like to hang out with other complainers. Hence the saying, misery loves company. Right? And so if you can now start to surround yourself with other people who are doing what you want to do in a positive way, especially if you can find 4 to 5 people, well, the nice thing is that you can become the 5th or the 6th of that positive, inspiring, uplifting. On the flip side, unfortunately, if you hang around 5 people that are not motivating, 5 people that are generally negative, 5 people that always are cynical, then chances are that you're going to be number 6 as well. But now let's go into Alto. And for anybody who's new to our world, I mean, you'll hear me reference Laura as Alto. What are some things that agents can do aside from content? Because we harped on, like, you got to do some content. I like what you said as well. Like, it doesn't need to be video. Video, in our opinion, is the queen of content. Playing chess my whole life and not that good at it, but
it's all about the queen.
It's all about the queen. Content is, when you're thinking about content, video is the top dog, reason being because you can do so much with it afterwards. But if you're not comfortable yet, I don't care. Maybe you're a better writer, so start writing. Maybe you can draw. Maybe I got photographers. I hear clicking in the background.
And you can tell stories.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
You can story tell through many, many different avenues. And that's all what this is really about in terms of content. You tell stories. As long as you realize you don't have to just be doing real estate content.
I just see some new people that are coming on our Twitch. I mean, guys,
we actually have people on the Twitch.
Yeah, 100%. If you don't mind, just kind of introduce yourself in the chat. I would love to know who is jumping in. So aside from content, what are some things that you would recommend? And we'll go back and forth on it.
You mentioned one earlier, which is educational events. We wish we had done more last year. I think if you haven't done any educational events, your goal for this year should be to do 4.
Yeah.
So it's 1 every 3 months, right? That's not a whole lot. And in fact, I'm not even sure that's so much that it's going to change your entire business by doing 4. But I like to start small with people, just like me and my podcast. Like, you got to start somewhere. And if I tell you that you have to do 12 or 10, you're going to get so overwhelmed that you're not going to do anything. So 4 seems very manageable. So if you can get your first one out by like February, late February, early
this an
March.
in-person you're talking about? Or
In person.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because often, great point. We don't consider our bi-weekly webinars like events, really. Like, yes, they're kind of events, but there is something about belly-to-belly events that allow for building relationships that you can't get when you're doing a webinar. And we are in the relationship business as real estate agents. And so I think it's really important to do in person. The good news is that you don't have to be an expert. You could be a brand new real estate agent, still put on educational events. All you need to do is bring on other people who are experts in their field within real estate. So you bring on a real estate lawyer, you bring on a mortgage broker, you bring on your broker of record, you bring on an insurance person, an accountant. You bring on people to help educate your people on how they can buy more real estate. So that's really the goal. So it's great. You just have to host, which is what most real estate agents are probably best at anyway. That's why we got into the industry.
Well, look, I think on top of doing the educational in-person events, I think the one thing that as any salesperson in any sales industry, and this is something now that I've been doing solely on my own, not collectively with Laura or any of my business partners or other colleagues. I mean, I've been in the sales industry for coming up to 30 years. There's very little product or service that I'm not confident when it comes to selling. I just need to know the product, and then I got a lot of confidence because I've come to realize that it's kind of all the same. Right? And what is that? What do I mean by that? Well, if you don't know your product and you don't have that product knowledge, then you're probably going to be somewhat of a snake oil salesman. Probably not to that extreme, but definitely you're going to be trying to manipulate people and actually sell. It could be a lot easier. And what do I mean by that? It could be a lot easier because if you inform people and educate people, kind of like what we're trying to do today, what I really did with the podcast going back to 4 years ago, what you're doing with your show is like, come and watch and I'll give you some information. And then if you want more, we can connect. That's what you should be doing as a salesperson. And the best way, in my opinion, to do that is through the content, through the in-person events. But all of that is for naught if you're not willing to do the one exercise that is the most important when it comes to salespeople, and it's this exercise here. Picking up the phone. Unfortunately, it's not just texting anymore because there's so much opportunity because so many more people are texting. But the best thing to do, in my opinion, is pick up the phone and start calling people, and not cold calling and or asking them, to buy your service or sell your service in terms of like an air duct cleaner. But I'm saying calling and just asking, first and foremost, if you can even send them invites to the events, if you can even send them an email. Because if you don't have someone's permission, then you're kind of spamming them. And then you are more of a cold caller. Because at the end of the day, see, the one way to control what your outcome is going to be is by being proactive and making outbound phone calls, again, not cold calling necessarily, like literally calling people in your phone, on your social media, just to touch base. Laura said it earlier. Like, this is a belly-to-belly business. You got to shake hands. You got to kiss babies. You got to figure that out for yourself in which realm you want to do it. But it starts with making those phone calls at the start. Right, Laura?
Yeah.
Like, would you...
And look, when you pick up your phone and do that, this is the exercise. Like, I have anxiety just watching you do it because I'm not necessarily a natural born salesperson. I don't love picking up the phone and calling people. It doesn't come naturally to me. In fact, if someone were to ask me what my number one fear was when I was younger, it would probably be calling people on the phone.
Well, in fact, the first time that I asked you to make a phone call, you faked that you were making a phone call, and the phone rang.
And then the phone rang, and I was busted.
And you got called out.
Yeah, I sure did.
Yeah, but I'm still a nice guy.
I was
no problem. I'll give you another chance.
I'll
give you another chance. Make the effing call.
I was hopeful that I could get through this business without having to do that type of salesman work.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I was wrong. And for anyone who's watching, if you've gotten through this business without making calls, you've probably been lucky and you've been taking advantage of a great market. And my guess is those people really suffered this last year because if you weren't going outbound, unfortunately, no one was going inbound to you.
You were doing more, you were more of an order taker, right? Because people called you and said, "Hey, my name is Clyde, and I would love for you to come list my house."
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Alex, and I'm ready to buy that condo. Like it was order taking, right? That's that stuff. Like, would you like fries with that? And I'm like, you're talking to a true like all I ever wanted to be was a salesperson. I was the weird kid, 6 years old, like knocking on doors, selling Christmas ornaments, not getting paid for it, obviously. Then went at 12, like I was starting to sell newspapers. And also, like you've heard me talk about this, like I thought I was going to sell newspapers my whole life. I was like, this is it. I got my gig, right? Obviously, you learn like, okay, there's more to life than just selling newspapers. But I loved the interaction. And I can tell you right now that what you need to do is make sure you build an email list. This is it for 2024, guys. Okay. And like, if you want to know my business model, wherever you're watching and or listening right now, just send me an email, info@jazztakhar.ca. It's info@jazztakhar.ca, and say, I want your business plan for 2024. I'll share it with you. I'll give you all the stuff that I'm going to be planning.
I love how you make it sound like it's super robust.
Exactly, right? It's not.
Like it's the simplest business plan.
Because I know what people fall into, paralysis by analysis, right? They want the 67-page business plan that they learned at a business school. I mean, no knock on you, Laura. Like, you have an MBA in marketing and branding and communications by one of the top schools in the country. Like,
yeah, well, and look, those business plans are prepared to help you flourish in a major corporation. So a company that has hundreds, if not thousands of employees. Right. But as real estate agents, your business has one person, maybe two people in it. Yeah. So we don't have to get that sexy about it. We don't have to have pages upon pages of every little thing that we're going to be doing in the year, because you have to start working. And so it doesn't have to be long. I like that you keep it simple, because it just forces people to realize, again, how many ways in which they're overthinking their lives and their businesses. And so it's really simple. You plug in some numbers. It tells you how many calls you have to make every single day if you want to do X amount of business. And that's it. And then guess what you're going to do come January 1st? You're going to start working toward making those amount of phone calls. And that's it. And you always say, and I love this, if you're done making the phone calls for that day, put your feet up.
100%. Like, I'm not all about that hustle porn stuff, right? Like, you got to work 12 hours a day, every single day. Like, no, that doesn't actually even work. It's not sustainable.
I feel like if I get the job done, then I can actually go and relax. So it's almost motivating to me to want to get the work done faster. If I feel like it's small bite sizes and I can actually do it, like I have to make 5 outbound phone calls, 10 outbound phone calls, maybe 30 outbound phone calls. I didn't say connections instead of outbound phone calls. Connections are a different story, right? So you might have to make 30 outbound phone calls to connect with 8, 9, 10 people, right? Depending on where you are and your database, depending how cold or not it is.
Well, it's always tied to appointments, right? How many appointments are in your calendar? Show me your calendar. That was the year of 2023, and I'll just automatically kind of tell you how much business you've done. Like, literally, and in fact, somebody can call me out on that, right? Like, I think I'm quite confident to say, okay, if I look at someone's calendar and I know how many appointments they had, I can probably tell you how much business they did.
You know, I don't like to give you flowers, but when it comes to numbers, I wouldn't doubt this man.
Right? Yeah, because this is the gig. Yeah. This is the shtick. Like, this is what I've done. This is all I really, really know. And you guys are going to hear me say this a lot, especially to our new fans on Twitch. Like, I suck at 97% of things.
98, maybe.
Okay. You're also going to get used to this girl cutting me off on a regular basis. I'm used to it, so I can play with it. However, with that said, 98% to Laura, okay? It's the 2% that I just decided to go all in on. And that is what I'm hoping that people that are going to be along this journey, the people that have been along this journey with us forever, for decades now, they know, like, we don't really bullshit, right? Like, it's like, here's the situation. And you know, we're going to jump into the market, and a lot of our clients are listening to this as we speak, live as well as the recording. Look, I know the values didn't go up the way that they were supposed to go up, right? But we never said that real estate is a short-term buy. Mm-hmm. I never, like, again, call me out, send me the email, put it on social media for all I care. Like, say, no, Jazz is full of shit. He told me that I should buy this and flip this. I got, at least 2,000-3,000 hours of video recording somewhere in my vault that will tell you that I've never said that you're going to get rich with real estate quick. Yeah. Real estate is the get rich long scheme. You know what I mean? Like,
so it's funny because in 2019, I purchased a pre-construction condo.
Right. You just
under the advisement of yours truly.
Yes.
And I sell a lot of pre-construction condos. I believe in it, which is why I also bought one for myself.
Yeah.
Having said that, I'm coming up to occupancy this January. And look, it's not like the market did its thing for me. It's not like we put
It didn't do as well as you wanted it to do.
Well, but
Yeah.
here's the thing. I didn't buy it thinking I was going to flip it. So I knew, and I was preparing myself all along to get to the place where I was going to close. Does that mean getting all the financing in order is easy? Does that mean that I wouldn't prefer lower interest rates? Of course I would. But I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to work with an investor-savvy mortgage broker, and we are going to figure this out together, and we're going to close on it. And I am very confident that the fundamentals are still in place, that if I can just hold out 3 to 5 years at least, I will have not only made up for this last year, but I will have doubled, hopefully, my income. And if not in the next 5 years, for sure in the next 10, because as we know, on average, real estate prices in the Greater Toronto area double every 10 years.
Well, in fact, we actually have the actual numbers. And so right now in the Greater Toronto area, as of today, as of this recording, a couple of days before Christmas, average price in the GTA is $1.1 million. Okay. If you go back 10 years ago, so exactly 2013, the average price was $552,000. Okay. Rewind another 10 years from then, in 2003, average price was a little over $286,000 in the GTA. Okay, so if you just hold on to your real estate with, like, is it with dear life or
for dear life?
For dear life, you will almost guarantee yourself success with this strategy. Mm-hmm. That strategy being, try not to ever sell your real estate. So people ask me, like, how long should I hold on to it? Mm-hmm. Forever. But why would I do that, Jazz? That doesn't make sense. Like, when do I actually make money? Well, you can either make money, and really the only time that you lose money in real estate is when you sell it.
Yeah.
But the strategy that the uber wealthy use when it comes to real estate is they buy it, they hold on to it and rent it out, and then the value increases, okay? And then they do what's called a refinance. They pull out equity. It's almost like using your home as an ATM. You go to the machine, you punch in your code, it spits out money. Your home can be that for you, okay? And all you have to do is use that strategy, which is refinancing. Now, at certain times in that 10-year window, values do drop, okay? But this is where, if you have a long-term mindset, minimum a decade, you won't lose sleep. And the reason being because, like we just went through in the last, call it 16 to 18 months, including this year of 2023, values did drop. But if you were thinking and understanding and knowing that you're going to keep this for another 6, 7, 8, 9 years, because you're 2, 3 years into the buy, into the strategy of the investment, then you're not going to lose sleep. Because it's like, oh, this is just part of the game. Sometimes they dip. And
doing exactly what I was told.
And what does real estate do in terms of
up and down, upward?
Like we say it all the time. We sound like a broken record, but we sound, and it's a cliche because it's so true. Now, when the values dip, this is not necessarily a time for you to refinance. Why? Because when you go get an appraisal done on your property, it's going to come in lower. And so maybe now's not the time. But that brings me to the second article, number 2 there from great site. I've been following these guys at stories.com for a very long time. I mean, and the headline says, Buyers' Bargaining Power highlights how interest rates and economic uncertainty have led to buyers' markets in Canadian real estate with a focus on Toronto and Vancouver. Phenomenal article, okay, because it talks about what the buyer's market, where the buyer's market is. But before I think we touch on a buyer's market, where the buyer's market is and why that's important, it's important to talk about how do we get to a buyer's market?
Yeah, or what is a buyer's market?
What is a buyer's market?
So we hear this all the time, right? Buyers versus sellers market. There's also something called a balanced market, which I think most people don't understand, which is somewhere in between a buyer's and a seller's market, or there's enough houses and properties that are selling to meet the needs of the buyers. That essentially is a balanced market. And that's what, anywhere between 3 and 5?
3 and 5 months.
3 and 5 months
of inventory,
right?
Yes.
And anywhere between, I guess, 0 and 3 months means it's a seller's market. Anywhere over, north and above of 5 is a buyer's market. So oftentimes we hear in the headlines that think it's a buyer's market, it's a buyer's market. For a very long time, the last couple of years, it actually wasn't a buyer's market. It was just more of a balanced market. The only difference was we were so used to it being a hyper hot seller's market that it felt like a buyer's market, but it wasn't technically a buyer's market.
Right. And so when you're looking at a seller's market, if you're new to the real estate world, it's quite simple, right? Like when there's little supply of something, but a lot of demand. So a lot of people are in line for the hot dogs, but there's only a few hot dogs left. There's a good chance that the hot dog vendor is going to increase the pricing.
I like hot dogs.
You like food. I could have said burgers. I could have said pizza.
Street meat.
Yeah, whatever. Real estate's no different, right? And so a seller's market, what we just came out of about 12 months ago, 14 months ago, was we had a lot of people wanting to buy real estate, but there wasn't a lot of properties for sale. And that's when you were hearing things like, oh, there's multiple offers, meaning on one property, you would have 32 people bidding on that property, okay? And we'll do some talks and podcasts around the process of if you're a seller, how to win in a multiple, like how to make sure that you can get some multiple offers. If you're a buyer, how could you win? But in the buyer's market, it flips. And what do I mean by that? It flips. What that means is that there's more properties for sale than there is people looking. Case in point, using the hot dogs again, there's nobody in line for the hot dogs, and the guy has a lot of hot dogs that are just sitting there. And chances are he's going to decrease the price to get people to come buy some hot dogs. Real estate again, that's what we're in right now. Hence this article, that the bargaining power, the negotiations that can happen from a buyer's perspective are in the favor of the buyer because he or she has more properties that they can go put those offers on, that the seller of that property needs to start to think, okay, it's a term called sharpening the pencil. Like I might need to decrease the price of my home right now because of X, Y, and Z, i.e. the fact that there's a lot more properties for sale. So right now we're sitting in that time period where there's more properties for sale. So meaning, if you're a home buyer, meaning first time buyer, or you're an investor, right now is a great time not to buy. I'm not here with that rhetoric like you should buy real estate. Blah, blah, blah. No, not that nonsense. If you're wanting to, know that right now would be a great time to put in a bunch of offers and throw in a lowball offer. There's nothing wrong with that. What does that mean? I can't really get into that because every situation is different. But you're not in a place where you have to overpay for a property right now because you can actually negotiate the price down.
I know.
And so
when you think about just a couple years ago, you couldn't put any conditions in your offers, right? No condition on finance, no condition on an inspection. It was scary times. People were buying properties without even like looking at the property because there was no time. They would send their agent, the agent would go see it, or they would just put in an offer because they're like, this is it. This is the street or the location, and there might not be another property that comes up for sale in the next couple months. So I have to act now. So now you actually have an opportunity to really like cross your T's and dot your I's, which we weren't always have before. So I think you're right. If you're thinking about buying, you may as well do it now because there is some suggestion that interest rates might start coming down when, I have no idea, but I've heard, March, April, May, sometime in spring. If that's true, then you really only have a small amount of time before maybe the excitement gets spurred. And again, this isn't about timing the market absolutely perfectly, but it's about kind of like overall looking at the market saying, look, I know I need to buy something, so now is not a bad time to buy.
Well, because see, what's going to happen is it's important what you said about the spring market, right? If that's where the interest rates start to decrease and they go lower, what happens is now more people are going to get into the market because they can afford a higher price. They can afford I apologize. Let me rephrase that. They can afford a higher monthly payment. And because they can afford a higher monthly payment, they're going to actually, the prices of homes and condos and real estate in general, it increases. So I know most people are waiting for interest rates to drop, but you actually lose in the end because you're going to pay more in closing costs as well. Because in Toronto, in the GTA, in Ontario, I apologize, the province, that when you buy a property, you have to pay what's called land transfer tax. That land transfer tax is based on the purchase price. So with the purchase price being lower right now, you're actually saving money in some aspects. Now, always understand that in the greater Toronto area, yes, we have how many cities we have in the province in Southern Ontario. But we also have what's known as micro markets, meaning that the Brampton real estate market is completely different than the downtown condo market. Within the downtown condo market, there's probably about another 100 separate micro markets as well. So always know that when you're looking at real estate, get into the micro. It's nice to read some headlines and look at some numbers from a national perspective, but that does not whatsoever speak to the micro markets at large. Thoughts? I nailed it. I nailed it. I nailed the real estate.
Obviously you have to do your due diligence. I was just thinking kind of back to my particular situation, right? Like that I'm going to be getting a mortgage in the springtime.
Yeah.
But like luckily my price point was locked in because it was pre-construction.
Yeah.
So I actually don't have to worry about it. And people tend, like generally speaking, know this instinctively. Spring markets are always busier.
Yeah.
So right now, like no one buys a house unless they really, really need to.
Well, let's share it. What did you buy your condo for?
So I bought my condo for $590,000.
$590,000.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the square feet again?
That's a good question.
650, 660?
That sounds
Something like that's
right.
a 2-bedroom condo.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It was less than $1,000 a square foot.
Got it. And what do we think it's worth right now? I know we're going to get it appraised once you get...
65?
665. Okay, cool. Awesome. Now, some people might say, well, okay, that's a $75,000 increase in pricing. I actually think it's probably worth a little bit more than that, but let's just use your 665 as an example. Okay. How much did you put down on that?
21% I had to put down.
21%, just for easy math for Jazz's head right now. We're going to use 20%. That's approximately $118,000 that you put down. Okay. You haven't done any closing costs or anything of that sort. Okay. So if you go with your, and let's just do some real easy math here, your $75,000 divided by the 118 that you put in. Okay. You've seen, and how many years did you?
4 years.
4 years ago. Yeah. Okay. It's a 63%. Just want to make sure so I don't misquote.
So I'm glad you're doing math over there.
100%. Let's just do this again. Just so Jazzy is saying the right numbers here, 75,000. We said 118,000.
Trying to give me a year over year.
Perfect. Okay. So 63% is what your total return on your investment. 63%, but it's over 4 years, you said, right? Okay. So that's divided by 4, and you're looking at 20% year over year.
And that's kind of funny because when you think about that, some people might be like, well, 20, that's not great. I mean, 20 is great.
It's amazing.
But like, some people might not think that that's fantastic. Like, oh, you only made 75.
Can I just explain?
Not when you're looking at the percentage, but when you're looking at the actual dollars. Because if I sold it, I'd have to pay all these fees anyway, so I wouldn't make any money.
Yeah.
Having said that, it's that I did nothing to earn that 75 grand. I literally, guys, I signed paperwork. I wrote checks. I made sure there was money in my bank account when the checks were being cashed. That was the extent of the work that I did, and I made $75,000.
Yeah, people got their, like, they're a little confused when they say 20%. I'm not saying that you said that 20%, but I know we hear that sometimes. If you don't think a 20% return is good, you are on some drugs. Because here, let me explain it to you. If somebody gives you 20 cents for every time you give them $1, that's what your return is. Like, you get your $1 back plus 20 cents. It's never a question if that's a good deal. It's how many times can you do that?
Well, and think of a person,
especially if you're not doing much,
someone who works a regular job, right? In order to earn $75,000, for example, say in 1 year. Think about your daily effort. You're working a 9 to 5. You're working anywhere between 48 and 50 weeks a year.
Yep.
Right? Like, you're working a lot to earn that 75, and I did nothing
to
earn that.
Very passive. And now once you start to get the renter in, this is where it's, now you have a little bit more work, but with a little bit of more work usually comes a higher reward. And so for that little bit of work that you need to do, bringing in a tenant, you got to make sure that they keep paying and so on and so forth. Your return is going to go from 20%. It's going to jump upwards to about 30 to 32%. I know that to be true because I've done a little over now 1,800 units for clients in my career, along with you, obviously. And so I kind of know. As we have more and more, viewers jumping on and off, we are going to start to bring this to an end. It was the first ever live stream of the Jazz Takhar podcast. It was something that It was really cool.
I feel very honored.
Well, to be on it?
To be in this new set.
Yo, I didn't even mention the new set.
We changed the set. How do you not change it? It looks so good. I'm like, I can see it on camera right now.
I look really cool,
particularly good at it.
Yeah, okay.
But it looks fantastic. And
you've gotten cocky, a little bit more cocky than I've...
You rubbed off.
I don't know what's
you
going
are
on
who you
with
hang out with.
Yeah,
so my head's getting bigger and bigger as we move on. But come like this March, we will have been doing this for 5 years.
Yeah.
And we've had so many iterations of the show. We've had different names for the show. We've had so many different guests. And I always feel so honored whenever you bring me on when there's a change, because I'm just so excited. I'm so excited for what the year is going to bring us. I'm excited for your show, of course. I'm excited for things that are going on in my show. I'm pumped about our business. We have a lot that we're working on. And hopefully we'll be bringing more value to people. And again, working with our amazing clients who we've been working with for decades upon decades. I'll be closing on a pre-construction condo, so I'll be sharing that story more and more. And I'm doing that with, I think, 19 other investors.
Link's Condos was 19 in total, incling you.
Yeah, so there we go.
My sister-in-law, she's in that building as well.
I know. We're going to be good neighbors. Spencer, one of our employees, his family invested in it as well. So I'm in good company. So 100%. I feel like 2024 has a lot to look forward to.
Well, look, to the team, I'm going to sign off with the team because I get to be on a lot of content. And when I drive, sometimes I get stopped at a gas station. Sometimes I'm at a restaurant. I get stopped. Sometimes, like literally yesterday, I'm just walking in the shops and a guy pulls me over. He's like, "Oh my God, it's so kind of cool." And I watch you on content and stuff like that. And so I get it. Like I always get the thank you, Jazz, for putting out so much content. But it would be not even nearly impossible. It would be completely impossible without the crew that did what they did in all of 2023. And I know the new crew that's moving forward with us in 2024. I could never, ever have imagined a complete switch around on the set, how we're live streaming and everything that we're going to be bringing to you in 2024 without my crew. I might forget some names, and so I apologize up front. But Alto, starting with you, thank you for everything you do and have done. My business partner in my real estate company, Simeon, lots of love for you as well, my man. Tyler, Luke, Alex, Way, Mel, Clyde, Bo, Jesse.
I was going to say Jesse. Did you say Steven?
I'm going there.
Oh, okay.
Steven Rochester, my boy Yassity Yass. I think I got
Tilly.
Everyone. Oh, thank you.
How you forget
100%.
Tilly.
Big shout out to Tilly. I think I got everyone because I'm pretty good like that. And
Nikki? Did you say Nikki?
Oh my God, there you go. Our boy,
I'm crushing
Nikki,
it today.
Nikki, Alto,
I gotta tell you.
Alto's on
I gotta
fire.
tell you.
And Nikki, to our family, thank you for everything you do at our homes. Couldn't have done this without you. To our friends, some of the boys that I haven't seen in a long time. Love you guys. And to you guys, our new fans and our listeners and our viewers. I mean, when you sit and you speak to a camera, it's kind of weird at times. And you speak to a mic, you can't see the person. At least when I go on stage, and Laura, when you go on stage, you can feel the vibe of other people because they're in front of you, but yet you still give us the comments either live or you send them in DMs, you send them in emails. It wouldn't be worth it if nobody was ever watching or nobody was ever listening. So thank you for continuously supporting us, continuously being part of this journey. It would be useless without you, as I said. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Festivus to the rest of us, and have an awesome start to 2024. I'm being told I should be talking to that camera as I'm getting used to this new set.
So many cameras.
I know. I love each and every one of you. Happy New Year. We'll see you on the other side. All right. We're almost